Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So today is going to be where I'm going to talk about places to find supplies. Now I think I have top 50 places to find supplies during an SHTF type situation. Now before I get started, I want to say that I think there is a distinct difference between looting and scavenging. And what I'm talking about here is scavenging. Looting is when you go out and you take something from someone else who's alive, who owns it, who's using it, that kind of thing. Scavenging is more of a broad term where you're trying to find items. You could potentially purchase them, you could potentially barter for them, or if they have been abandoned items and no one is currently using them or owns them, then you take those items, okay? Now, I think that you need to make a moral judgment on whether or not it's okay for you to scavenge items or not. Same goes for looting. Personally, for me, I'm not going to loot anything. I'm not going to steal something that somebody's using. But if I come across abandoned property, then I'm absolutely going to use that, especially if it was good for my family. So that's what I'm talking about here. If people tend to use this information for looting, then you suck, and hopefully you'll get caught or killed or whatever, because stealing from people is not good. But anyway, I think that it's worth thinking about and worth doing a thought exercise to kind of get yourself in the right frame of mind on where you would go to find things if stuff just happened to fall apart. Again, it could be a long, slow slide, and in this instance, where it's a long, slow slide, maybe you're going to try to go to these places to try to buy things or barter things or whatever the case may be. If it was just a really bad deal like an EMP or something like that, or a major pandemic where people just mass die-offs and a lot of stuff was abandoned, then you might go here looking for items that have been abandoned. So with that, the first few ones of these are going to be kind of the easy picking, the low-hanging fruit that everybody's kind of aware of, and then we'll get into some of the more stuff that might not have been thinking or may not have thought of. So first one, number 50 on the list, Costco, Sam's Club, big box stores like that. Those are going to be hit pretty hard and they're going to be emptied pretty quick. Same thing goes with number 49, which is grocery stores. Number 48, Home Depot and Lowe's. Number 47, gas stations. Number 46, department stores like Walmart and Target. And number 45, restaurants. Number 44, gun stores. So, those all are kind of like, yeah, no kidding, duh. Those, we definitely understand that those are going to get hit hard, probably right up front. There's probably not going to be much in them, but, they're worth putting on the list because of the amount of stuff that is in those. Another one, number 43 on the list, is government buildings. A lot of times government buildings may have different county, state, and local buildings could have tools or other things in there that, from a moral perspective, I don't feel very bad about using government equipment because my tax dollars paid for those things. So that might be, something to explore there. Number 42, auto parts stores. Cars start to break down, stuff like that. Auto parts stores have a lot of tools and parts. Coincidentally, on that note, if you're going to own a vehicle for a bug-out vehicle, it's my opinion that you should own something that is between 7 years old and 15 years old. Notwithstanding the whole EMP section of that, but I've talked to several auto parts store managers who say that the vast majority of parts that they stock in their store are for cars that are between 7 and 15 years old. So you'd have a better chance of finding replacement parts for them. Okay, number 41 is gyms, workout gyms, Gold's Gym, that kind of thing. Got a lot of supplements in there. Maybe they have a back room where stuff is stored, protein powder and different stuff like that could be pretty useful. Okay. After gyms, number 40 is country clubs or golf courses. A lot of times country clubs and golf courses will have some sort of a restaurant in there, like the 19th hole kind of thing at the end of the golf course. and they also generally sell a lot of snacks and stuff. Places like that are high luxury places are probably going to be abandoned pretty early on, so that could be a potential. And libraries, not going to probably find a lot of food and stuff in libraries, but books that could be very helpful during their recovery might be something that you'd want to look at. Movie theaters, movie theaters have a lot of snacks and stuff like that. A lot of food back in there, and you may be able to find that. Popcorn probably in bulk, just some potential options here. Number 37, airports. In airports, if the companies go belly up and it's all closed up, it's an industrial area, got a lot of tools, have a lot of different potential options in airports that may be useful. Same thing goes with marinas, docked boats, and even yachts. Those kind of things might be abandoned early on, and it might potentially have some good supplies there. Number 35 is restaurants, supply stores. So not just your typical restaurant, but these places that supply other restaurants with bulk food. Those would be a potential gold mine probably. Because as the restaurants start to get looted and closed up and all that kind of stuff, the restaurant supply stores may have more stuff on hand because it wasn't being distributed out. Number 34, amusement parks. Again, in an emergency situation, amusement parks will probably be closed, and they will probably have, they've got lots of different restaurants and food and stuff like that. Figuring out where that's all stored might be challenging, but it's a possibility. Number 33, zoos. Zoos always, have lots of different snack shops and restaurants, and don't hate me for saying this, but, there's animals there, so that's meat. I'm sure Pete is going to freak out on that one. But anyway, it comes to a life or death situation, you got to do what you got to do. Number 32, pet stores. And I'm not talking about like eating the cats and dogs that are in the pet stores. You could if you had to, but I was more talking about food and the bulk supply of pet food that you may want to use for your pets to keep them alive. But you could also eat pet food if you had to. That'd be really terrible, but you could. Number 31, feed store or like a Tractor Supply. Those places have lots of different useful things like traps and obviously feed, so corn and that kind of thing that you could actually eat if you had to. You have to process it appropriately and all that, but you could also use it for feeding your animals if you had a small homestead and that kind of thing. And you're able to get, maybe good deals on some bulk food because they're wanting to clear it out because they understand that, the economy's going to, tits up. So number 30 on the list is recycling centers. Recycling centers could have a lot of potentially useful items for you to use there. Just depending on the situation, it's not going to necessarily be so much on the food, but containers and insulation like cardboard and different things might potentially be useful. Who knows? Number 29, this one's kind of nasty, but landfills and dumpsters. People throw away a lot of crap, and this might be a good one that potentially early on before a crisis gets really bad, you may be able to find a lot of good useful stuff in landfills and dumpsters. Number 28, a pharmacy. Again, this one would be something that you'd want to hit pretty early. You'd want to, try to get there and see if you could negotiate, getting your drugs in bulk or something along those lines. Again, it's really going to just depend on the situation. If it's a long, slow slide where there's still law and order and all that kind of stuff, that's probably not going to work so well. But if it's kind of a quick thing like an EMP or something, you may be able to work out a deal. Number 27 on the list is a dentist office. A dentist office is going to have a lot of good tools and stuff like that as far as dealing with dental emergencies. They're also going to have some painkillers and anesthesia, nitrous oxide, for laughing gas, stuff like that. Bakeries, bakery and bread distribution centers, probably going to have a lot of mass, bulk items for preparing bread, wheat, flour, yeast, that kind of stuff. And that could potentially be good. And if their business had fallen off in a long, slow slide, then you may be able to convince them to get you really good deals on some of that stuff in bulk. So Number 24, ambulance. You know, if ambulances are abandoned, stuff like that, they're going to have a lot of good first aid equipment in there. And number 23, a hospice center. You know, places like this in a big emergency where, you know, like a lights out kind of emergency, grid down kind of situation, are probably going to be the first to be abandoned. And you may be able to find a lot of supplies there because they're feeding people and they're caring for multiple people, and those people are probably going to die fairly quickly. A lot of people aren't going to want to go into a place like that, and so you may be able to find some supplies there. Another place is cruise ships. You know, probably not a lot of people taking cruises when the economy's going, you know, belly up. But there could be a lot of stuff on there. They generally have supplies for several thousand people, so you may be able to find something on a cruise ship. I mean, if you knew how to drive one, it'd be cool to take it out to sea too, right? Anyway, let's see. Number 21 is landscape centers and tree nurseries. Now, this is something that a lot of people aren't going to think about because you're not necessarily going to get any immediate food from this. But if you could get a whole truckload of fruit trees and a whole, you know, all that kind of stuff, or, you know, fertilizer for a garden, all that kind of stuff, it could definitely help your situation out in long-term sustainability. And, you know, that might be something that would be fairly easy to get at a pretty low price because, you know, they would understand that people are not going to be planting a lot of trees and stuff in general. Let's see here. Number 20 is ports and shipping, you know, where they've got tons and tons of shipping containers and all that kind of stuff. There is going to be a massive amount of those things there. And if there's a situation where we don't have any fuel, then those shipping containers are probably going to be staying at the ports. They're not going to be going anywhere. So that might be some potentially good options as well. Number 19, kind of along the same lines, is train yards. If trains are not running and trains are sitting in the yards with the cargo that they had on them, or trains on the track somewhere, then, you know, they've been abandoned or whatever, then you may be able to find some good stuff in train cars. Number 18, grain elevators and co-ops. Again, this is another one for feeding your livestock or whatever, or getting raw materials, you know, that you could then break down and use for food yourself. Number 17 is factories or industrial buildings. Again, looking for supplies, building materials, potentially tools, those kinds of things there. Number 16, large office buildings, especially those with cafeterias. That might be a good place where you may have some food kind of, you know, snuck away, hidden back away in some areas that people just wouldn't really think about. Number 15, urgent care clinics, first aid equipment or first aid supplies, as well as maybe some degree of, you know, medicines and stuff like that. Probably mostly going to be first aid stuff there, though. Number 14, fire stations and fire trucks. Again, lots of different stuff at a fire station that could be used. It is government, you know, funded, and it, you know, if it is abandoned and nobody is there, for example, the services have broken down and they're not being used, then, you know, that might be up for grabs. Police stations, same way. You know, it's probably going to take a while for all the cops to quit and go home, but it is possible, and obviously there could be good stuff there. Number 12 is truck stops. Looking at truck stops, you could look at abandoned trucks or trailers. If a serious situation happened, it would probably not be uncommon for truckers to drop their trailers and to hurry home. Dropping the trailer allows them to go a lot faster and a lot farther with better fuel mileage, so they may end up abandoning a lot of property there. And then you've also got the restaurant and the stuff that you might find in the truck stop itself. Number 11, daycare centers. Now, this is probably not going to provide a lot of food, but you may be able to find diapers and formula and different things along those lines that could potentially help with taking care of young kids. Number 10 is National Guard armories. I guess you could throw military bases in with that as well. Again, those are probably going to be the last places to be abandoned, but if they were, then there's obviously going to be a ton of stuff that could be good there. I wouldn't try to go there when there are soldiers there. That'd be a bad idea. Let's see here. Number 9, hospitals. Again, probably going to be one of the first places cleared out, but you never know what you could find, what got left over, what's in supply closets and stuff like that. Number 8, distribution centers. Large distribution centers like for Amazon or Lowe's or Walmart. I know here in town we've got, I think, one of those, and so there's probably a ton of stuff there, and as those employees have to go home and take care of their family and stuff like that, and things stop, well, then that stuff might be abandoned. It's kind of along the same lines. Number 7 is warehouses. You could find warehouses that have been abandoned, and I think they would be very similarly probably left pretty early, and there would be a lot of stuff in them potentially. Number 6 is RV parks. Hard to say on this one, but if people felt like they needed to get back to their home early, it's a potential that they could abandon RVs there. Those could not only be good shelter places or kind of a bug out, good bug out vehicle kind of thing, but they potentially could have a lot of supplies in them as well. Number 5, prisons. I would imagine that prisoners will probably be released fairly early on, and so prisons may end up finding themselves empty before it gets too crazy. I mean, if it was good enough for The Walking Dead, then it's good enough for you, right? Okay, number 4 is schools. School cafeterias, a lot of bulk food. They feed a lot of people. You may be able to find some nourishment in there, and again, that's government funded, so, if you take it, it's your tax dollars, kind of the way I see it. Again, I'm not advocating taking any of this stuff while kids are there and keeping them from eating. Number 3 is retirement homes, kind of the same thing as the hospices. Those may be abandoned fairly early, people coming to pick up their other family members and stuff like that, or if it was a pandemic type situation, the young and the elderly are usually the ones that succumb to that first, so there could be a lot of deaths there. Also, if medicines and that kind of thing weren't flowing at the rate they normally are, then there's also a high probability of a high death rate at a retirement home, so we could potentially get stuff there as well. Number 2 on the list is pawn shops. Obviously a wide variety of things at pawn shops. And number 1 on the list, and again, these were really no particular order, but number 1 on the list is mini storage or self-storage places. A lot of people will probably forget that they even had anything there, and a lot of equipment and stuff would be abandoned. Potential clothing, a lot of different potential for that there. So that has been the top 50 places to find items after an SHTF kind of situation. Hopefully you found it useful. Again, I differentiate between looting and scavenging, and I do not advocate looting whatsoever, but scavenging makes sense to me depending on the environment that you're in. So anyway, guys, as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think would be another great place that I didn't list to find supplies. If you could put a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking, that would be really cool, because I learn from you guys all the time. And I'm pretty sure that I have one of the smartest audiences on YouTube, because you guys never cease to amaze me and impress me with the things that you put down in the comments. So I appreciate that. As always, I definitely appreciate it when you click the thumbs up button, when you share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys. Oh yeah, and if you wanted to ahead of time map all these places out and put them on a map so that you had them, kind of identified early on based on the proximity to your house, might be a good idea. I don't know.